skies over Israel are on fire. They knew it was coming, but no one expected it to start like this. At 4 a.m., the first sirens wailed over Tel Aviv. 23 seconds later, the first explosions. They were followed by a barrage. Over 300 objects were tracked in the sky: rockets, kamikaze drones, and decoy signals. This wasn't chaos. It was a precision-coordinated assault, a plan where every second and every inch of sky had been calculated in advance. The strikes hit infrastructure, residential neighborhoods, and military bases. The Iron Dome system, the heart of Israel's defense, was overwhelmed within the 6th minute of the attack. One by one, rockets broke through the shield. Not all of them, but far too many. The first wave of strikes slammed the suburbs of Tel Aviv: Herzliya, Bat Yam, Ramat Gan. Dozens of residential buildings were damaged, and the number of casualties is rising. Then, a new threat appeared in the skies over Haifa: medium-range ballistic missiles. According to Reuters, one warhead struck an industrial zone near the port, igniting a massive fire at an oil storage facility. Environmentalists are already sounding the alarm, reporting that tons of carcinogens have been released into the atmosphere. Rescue workers are operating in respirators, and access to the area has been cut off. Iran, without hiding its involvement, declared, "This is our response to the aggression against our sovereignty and our allies." It didn't just admit its role, it broadcasted videos of the missile launches live on state television. General Amir Ali Hajizadeh declared, "This isn't revenge. This is the first phase. The next will be more painful." Within half an hour, the Iraqi Shia militia, Kataib Hezbollah, launched rockets from the Kirkuk region. Simultaneously, strikes came from Yemen, where the Houthis, backed by Iran, announced the launch of long-range drones towards southern Israel. All of this unfolded within a single hour. Al Jazeera analysts are calling it a coordinated proxy campaign. For the first time in years, Iran's entire axis of resistance is operating in unison. And the most terrifying part, this is just the prologue. CNN reports confirm that a second wave of attacks is possible within the next 72 hours, potentially including the hypersonic weapons Iran tested just 2 months ago. Meanwhile, panic is gripping Israel. People are sleeping in bomb shelters. Schools have canceled classes indefinitely. The Times of Israel reports that over 700,000 people have been displaced from their homes. Transportation is paralyzed. All train services in Tel Aviv have been halted. The stock market is frozen, and the government has been moved to an emergency bunker in the Kiryat Memshala district. But the main blow isn't the physical destruction. It's the psychological shock. Israel is a nation accustomed to threats, but not on this scale. Hospitals are running out of space, and medics are working 36-hour shifts. For the first time since 1973, the IDF has announced a simultaneous mobilization of all reservists. This isn't just an escalation, it's a national military alert. And at this very moment, a signal from the north. Hezbollah, which had remained silent, suddenly escalated its presence near the border. In an interview with The Guardian, a representative of the Lebanese Shia movement stated, "We are waiting for the signal. It will come, and it will be the Zionists' last mistake." Satellites have detected the movement of heavy rocket launchers toward the border. Israeli forces have begun evacuating communities in the Galilee. All signs indicate that Israel is now facing a three-front war: attacks from Gaza and Yemen in the south, missile strikes from Iran in the east, and now the threat of Hezbollah from the north. This is no longer a local conflict. It's a nearly symmetrical war in the heart of the Middle East. And the most troubling part is, it's just beginning. The drone storm and the paralysis of the skies. When the sky becomes a source of terror instead of protection, time begins to flow differently. Starting at 5 a.m. on June 22nd, for 3 hours, hundreds of drones swarmed over Israel. These were not the typical commercial drones Hamas used in past conflicts. This was a new wave, military-grade drones, manufactured in Iranian factories and upgraded for long-range flight, radio jamming, and penetrating radar fields. According to CNN, the core of the attack was a combination of tactics. 1. Cheap noise drones designed to overwhelm air defense channels. 2. Kamikaze drones with low-yield warheads for precision strikes on radar systems. 3. Reconnaissance UAVs with thermal imagers, transmitting coordinates for missile strikes in real time. The Iron Dome system proved powerless against this strategy. An air defense officer admitted on Israel's Channel 12, "We didn't know what to shoot at. There were too many of them, and their trajectories didn't match any known patterns. In some sectors, we had to disable the auto-intercept systems to avoid wasting missiles on decoys." The result was gaping holes in the sky. The central part of the country was hit particularly hard. In Ramat Gan, a drone with a 2-kilogram charge struck the top floor of an apartment building. In Ashdod, it hit an electrical distribution hub. In Beersheba, the entrance to Soroka Medical Center was targeted. All 3 targets were civilian, all symbols that the boundaries of safety no longer exist. Simultaneously, Al Mayadeen reports that long-range drones type Samat 5 were launched from Yemen. One of them reached the Eilat area, flying over 1,600 kilometers. This is unprecedented. Israel has never faced such a long-range threat from a non-nuclear state without an air force. But it wasn't just the technology that was shocking, it was the sheer scope. At the same time as the strikes on Israel, similar drones were spotted over American bases in Syria and Iraq. Stratfor analysts call it a training platform for a new generation of asymmetric warfare. Iran appears to be testing its capabilities for a large-scale drone war in real time. Israel's response has so far been limited to interceptions and targeted strikes on launch sites. However, its effectiveness is diminishing. Military estimates suggest that in 18 hours of attacks, no more than 45% of enemy drones were intercepted. This is a critically low figure, especially amid growing public pressure. The first protests have broken out on the streets of Tel Aviv, with citizens demanding the immediate deployment of the experimental Iron Beam laser air defense system. But the Army's response is that the system is still in trials and won't be ready until 2026 at the earliest. For now, there is only manual targeting, night vigils, and constant anxiety. Meanwhile, a new statement came from Hamas. The sky no longer belongs to Israel. This is no longer just propaganda. It is becoming a reality. Amid the sharp rise in the effectiveness of drone attacks, the IDF command has requested the CRAM system from the United States, an American complex for intercepting small targets. A response has not yet been received. For the first time since 1981, Israel has begun redeploying reserve air defense crews from the northern and eastern regions to the south and center. It's a dangerous move, leaving parts of the border more vulnerable, but there is no choice. Where the drones fly, you cannot rely on walls. And while the air defense battles the small targets, something much bigger is being prepared behind the scenes. Intelligence agencies warn that the drone attacks are a prelude. The main strike is yet to come. The question is no longer if the system can hold, but what scenario it is completely unprepared for. Iran's proxies. Enter the fray. The morning of June 22nd turned out to be far darker than even the most pessimistic forecasts. Against the backdrop of massive air attacks, the ground geography of the conflict began to unfold in its entirety. Now, Iran's proxy groups are joining the battle, each from its own direction but with a single focus: to destroy Israel's logistical, infrastructural, and moral resilience. The South, Gaza Strip. At 6:12 a.m., Hamas militants conducted a synchronized operation on the border near Nahal Oz and Kisufim. Supported by artillery fire and surveillance drones, 70 armed fighters attempted to breach the security fence. According to the Times of Israel, Israeli forces repelled the attack, but suffered losses. 8 soldiers were killed and 19 were wounded. Meanwhile, videos appeared on Telegram showing Hamas militants infiltrating a kibbutz and engaging in combat with regular IDF units. The South, Yemen. The Houthis did not stand aside. Over 24 hours, at least 15 Birkin ballistic missiles were launched from Yemeni territory toward southern Israel. One of them hit an airfield near Beersheba. The IDF spokesperson's office confirmed that a hangar and a runway were damaged. Operations have been suspended. Drones launched from the same positions reached ports near Eilat, with one striking a cargo terminal, causing a major disruption in fuel supplies. The East, Iraq. According to Reuters, fighters from Kataib Hezbollah launched rockets from the Mosul area, targeting IDF positions on the Golan Heights. Some were intercepted, but 2 rockets fell near Ein Zivan, damaging a highway and a water pipeline. The Syrian front. This is a source of particular concern. According to satellite images published by The Guardian, Iranian volunteer battalions, including members of the Fatimiyun, Afghan mercenaries trained in Iran, are concentrated in the Daraa province. Israel has already carried out a series of preemptive strikes on these sites, but intelligence reports suggest these are not isolated groups, but entire battalions, numbering up to 1,500 fighters. This means one thing: Iran has activated its entire proxy network, coordinated in timing and targets. Hezbollah has so far maintained relative silence, but according to Al Jazeera, weapons depots in southern Lebanon have been activated and mobile rocket launchers have been deployed. This could indicate preparation for a second wave, a full-scale entry into the conflict after a direct strike on Iranian territory. Amid this multi-level attack, Israel finds itself in a position where every border demands immediate defense. The army is stretched thin. The Air Force in the north, artillery in the south, special forces in the center, all under the constant threat of drones and missiles. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated, "We are fighting a war not against one country but against a system. And this system wants one thing, to destroy Israel from within and without." The international reaction has been restrained. The EU calls for de-escalation, and the UN is convening an emergency meeting. But while discussions are held, the rockets fly. And the main question remains, how many more hits can Israel's infrastructure take before a real ground operation begins? Because the next stage of this conflict isn't in the sky, but on the ground. And it could be the bloodiest yet. A world watching in silence, Israel stands alone. As images of the destruction in Israel fill global news feeds, a silence echoes in the halls of the UN and Washington. Apart from formal calls for immediate de-escalation, no Western nation has issued a direct threat against Iran. Israel, more than ever before, feels that this time it is alone. President Joe Biden made a brief statement. "We support Israel's right to self-defense, but we will not be drawn into a regional conflict." It's a diplomatically veiled formula that hides the main point. The United States is not ready to enter a new Middle Eastern war. According to Politico, fear of repeating the mistakes of Iraq and Afghanistan pervades the White House. The American public is tired of military adventures, and Biden, in the midst of an election campaign, cannot afford to be drawn into an open conflict. Nevertheless, the logistics of military support continue. 28 transport planes have been dispatched from Ramstein Air Base in Germany, carrying air defense systems, ammunition, and reconnaissance equipment. But this is all hardware, not soldiers. In the words of Senator Rand Paul, America can give Israel weapons, but it must fight its own war. Israeli politicians are reacting with restraint, but tensions are rising within the country. Former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, in an interview with Haaretz, declared, "We relied on external help for too long. It's time to admit that Israel no longer has security guarantors. Iran has changed the rules of the game." Meanwhile, France has proposed an initiative to create a UN-sponsored security zone in southern Lebanon. Israel is categorically opposed, with the Ministry of Defense believing such a zone would only give Hezbollah more time to regroup. Germany has expressed serious concern and is ready to provide humanitarian aid but refuses to supply heavy weaponry. Against this backdrop, Turkey and Qatar are increasing their activity. President Erdogan called for the eradication of Zionist aggression and proposed convening another summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Qatar has sent 150 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza, while simultaneously increasing funding for Hamas. In Iran, there is jubilation. Tehran is openly displaying footage of its missile launches, and prayers for victory over the enemies of Islam are being read in mosques. But beyond diplomacy, the question remains, can Israel independently contain a full-scale regional escalation? According to analysts at the Rand Corporation, after just 7-10 more days of intense attacks, the army will be on the verge of depleting its ammunition, especially for anti-drone systems and air defense missiles. Israeli society is increasingly realizing that the paradigm has shifted. There is no longer a global shield in the form of the U.S., no automatic sanctions against its enemies. The world has become multipolar, and every nation acts in its own interest. And it is at this very moment that Israel faces a challenge for which it was unprepared. Experts say this could be the beginning of a new era in international relations, one where every ally is an ally only until the first strike, where every war is no longer symmetrical, and where even superpowers prefer to watch rather than intervene. And in this new reality, Israel must fight alone. Hezbollah in waiting. A strike or a step back. Amid the massive attacks from the south and east, the north remains on a knife's edge. Hezbollah, Tehran's main unused asset, is waiting. But the silence from Lebanon is as unnerving as the rockets from Gaza. Satellite images published by the Times of Israel and Al Jazeera confirm active movement of military hardware in the areas of Taibeh, Adarun, and Bint Jabil. Over the last 24 hours, columns of trucks carrying Zelzal rockets and Shahed-type drones have been recorded. Short-range air defense batteries have been installed near the border. This isn't defense, it's preparation for an offensive. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, gave a rare address on June 23. If Israel continues its strikes on Tehran, our rockets will fly faster than the wind. In Beirut, waves of demonstrations have erupted, both in support of the Palestinians and criticizing involvement in the war. Lebanese society is fractured, but Hezbollah's structure does not depend on public opinion. It depends on orders from Tehran. According to Israeli intelligence, the group is prepared to strike key targets in the north: Kiryat Shmona, Metula, Nahariya. A state of emergency has been declared within a 30-kilometer radius of the border. More than 90,000 residents have been evacuated, schools are closed, and reserve hospitals have been opened in Isfahan and Haifa. The IDF command is reinforcing its defenses. Iron Dome batteries have been redeployed, and Patriot anti-aircraft systems are in place. For the first time since 2006, armored units of the Barzanit Brigade have been sent to the border. But the main threat isn't a frontal assault. It's the tactic of a simultaneous salvo on 30 to 40 points, which could paralyze the entire response system. Hezbollah possesses over 150,000 rockets, including precision-guided medium-range munitions. According to Haaretz, some are equipped with optical guidance and are designed for pinpoint strikes on command centers and power grids. The IDF understands that the first volley could decide the battle, but for now, the order has not been given, and this is fueling speculation. Some experts believe Iran is holding Hezbollah in reserve until Israel strikes its nuclear facilities. Others argue the movement is waiting for a front to open in Iraq or the Golan to strike in sync. A third opinion suggests Hezbollah is waiting for a diplomatic window, maintaining a position of deterrence until the U.S. and EU define their stance. Meanwhile, Lebanon's economic crisis is worsening. The lira is collapsing and food prices are soaring. Any involvement in the war threatens a total collapse. This is understood in Beirut, Ankara, and Paris. That is why France has intensified diplomatic contacts, proposing a scenario of a neutral observer between Lebanon and Israel. But trust in international mechanisms is at an all-time low. Israel, for its part, is acting preemptively. On June 24th, Israeli aircraft struck Hezbollah warehouses in the Bekaa Valley. The bombing was accompanied by electronic jamming. The goal, to demonstrate that Israel knows what's coming and is ready for it. This creates a dilemma. If Hezbollah enters the fight, it becomes a point of no return. If it doesn't, it loses face. But as long as the northern front remains silent, the tension continues to build, and every hour of quiet is another turn in a spiral of war that is becoming increasingly uncontrollable. The crisis of trust inside Israel. While rockets rain down from the sky and fronts ignite in every direction, an equally dangerous crisis is brewing within Israel itself. A political schism between the military command and the government, discontent among the population, and waves of protests in Tel Aviv and Haifa. All of this is creating an atmosphere of internal mistrust in a country already on the brink. On the evening of June 24th, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert harshly criticized the actions of the current head of government, Benjamin Netanyahu. Live on Channel 12, he declared, "What is happening is not an intelligence failure. It is a systemic failure. We were not prepared. We have lost the strategic initiative." These words triggered a fierce reaction in society. Social media flooded with hashtags like Dasreis Time to Leave and Naskri Crisis of Faith. According to a poll by the Yedioth Aharonoth newspaper, 63% of Israelis believe the government made serious miscalculations in preparing for the escalation. 41% of respondents support immediate early elections. The demonstrations are intensifying. Barricades have been erected on the streets of Tel Aviv, and thousands are protesting outside the Knesset building. This isn't just political turbulence. It's an erosion of national unity in a time of war. Army sources, speaking on condition of anonymity, report that the IDF command is dissatisfied with the timeliness of the mobilization, the unclear priorities, and the cabinet's attempts to interfere in tactical decisions. Furthermore, signs of moral exhaustion are being noted in several units. Reservists are working without sleep, without rotation, and without a clear strategy. Against this backdrop, pressure from allies is mounting. The U.S. and Germany are demanding restraint from Israel, but offer no guarantees. Israeli generals are saying openly, they demand, but they don't help. We have been left alone. In this context, the role of public opinion is growing. If before it rallied around the flag, today it demands change. Meanwhile, economic indicators are worsening. The stock market has crashed, the shekel is losing value, businesses are closing, and tourism has vanished. Central Tel Aviv is turning into a ghost town. Israel is entering a phase of not only military, but also economic warfare. And all this while the attacks continue. On the night of June 25th, a power station near Ashkelon was hit again. In Haifa, a section of the railway was destroyed. In Jerusalem, the light rail has stopped running. People are living in shelters, but their fear is not only of external attacks, but also of the uncertainty of what comes next. While Netanyahu avoids direct statements, his cabinet issues dry summaries, avoiding admissions of responsibility. But the pressure is building. Even within the ranks of his own Likud party, voices are calling for a broad coalition, or at least a dialogue with the opposition. Israel finds itself in a situation where an external war has triggered an internal political shock. This is a test not just for the army, but for the entire system, for the nation, and for its ability to withstand not only rockets, but also its own internal fractures. Conclusion. The conflict that has erupted around Israel has become a multi-layered war. It is not just an exchange of strikes with Iran. It is a clash of strategies, proxy networks, diplomatic intrigues, and internal crises. Israel is under attack not only from the air and the ground, but, most dangerously, from within. Iran's proxies are synchronized. Hamas, the Houthis, and groups from Iraq and Syria are coordinated by Tehran. Hezbollah holds the north at gunpoint, awaiting the signal. The United States is distancing itself, Europe is hesitant, and allies are silent. Israel is alone. Its army is overstretched, its air defense is strained, and its economy is falling. Inside the country, a wave of distrust is cresting. Street protests challenge the government, the political system is fracturing, and the population is losing patience. At this moment, every day without a resolution is a step toward chaos. This war will not end tomorrow. And even if the rockets stop falling, the country has already changed. It has become different. And the question now is not only who will win, but whether Israel will withstand the battle against itself.